During a family vacation, my parents and sister locked my 8-year-old daughter in a sweltering hotel room with no food or water and left for the day, taking their other grandchildren on a luxury boat ride. There wasn't enough space on the boat, they said. I didn't shout. Did this. 60 minutes later, their lives turned into hell. It happened in the middle of my shift at the hospital. A nurse, so calls from numbers I don't know usually wait until break, but this one had the same area code as the hotel where my parents and sister were staying with my daughter Sophie. Something in me knew I had to answer. Is this Emma Mitchell? A woman asked, polite but tight. Yes, I'm calling from the reception at the beachside hotel. Your daughter is here and would like to speak with you. My stomach dropped. Put her in. There was a shuffle, then Sophie's voice, small, trying to sound brave. Mama, I'm here. What happened? They went on a boat. They locked the door. What do you mean locked the door? I asked, my voice suddenly very calm. They said it wasn't for little kids. Grandma said I was naughty earlier. They left. Couldn't get water. It's really hot. You're with the front desk now? Yes. Stay there. Don't go anywhere. Coming. I spoke to the receptionist. Again. She lowered her voice. She told us there's no food or water in the room. Housekeeping said it was very warm when they checked. We'll keep her with us until you arrive. Thank you, I said. My mouth tasted metallic. I started calling. Mom, voicemail. Dad, voicemail. My sister Karen, voicemail. I texted. Where are you? Why is Sophie alone? Call me now. Finally, Karen picked up. Whined, and laughter in the background. Hey, we're just boarding. Where is my daughter? She's at the hotel. She'll be fine. There wasn't enough space on the boat, and it's not really for 8-year-olds. Plus, she was acting up earlier. Mom said she needs to learn boundaries. You locked her in a hot room without water. I said flatly. She's exaggerating. Relax. You're being dramatic. Then she hung up. I grabbed my bag, told my charge nurse I had an emergency, and was in my car before the elevator reached the ground floor. The drive was 2 hours of white lines and worst-case scenarios. Every mile made me more certain there was no coming back from this. When I walked into the hotel lobby, Sophie was in an armchair, legs swinging, cheeks blotchy. She ran into me like she wanted to stay there forever. You did everything right, I told her. The receptionist gave me a tight nod. Thank you, I said. I sat Sophie down. Did anyone say when they'd be back? They said later and not to touch anything. Checked my phone. No calls, no texts. Opened my banking app and froze. Pending charge big enough to make my chest tighten. Not lunch, not snacks. This was the boat trip, the one Sophie wasn't even on. I kept my voice even. Could you print me the folio for this room? The receptionist glanced at her screen, then nodded. While the printer hummed, my phone buzzed with a text from my mom. Stop being ridiculous. She was safe. Learn to control your child. Safe. Locked in a hot hotel room with nothing to eat or drink. Their version of safe had always been different from mine. The receptionist slid the paper across the counter, a neat list of charges, one of them big enough to make my stomach knot. I didn't need to study it. I already knew what it was. I folded it once and slipped it into my bag. Then I sat back, down next to Sophie. She leaned against me, watching the lobby like she was afraid it might vanish if she blinked. Pulled out my phone. My hands didn't shake. Not anymore. I opened what I needed to open, tapped where I needed to tap, and made the call I should have made hours ago. Sophie tilted her head. What are you doing fixing it? I said. We stayed by the window, the ocean. Bright and loud outside, people passing. With beach bags and sunburns, oblivious. My phone buzzed again. I didn't answer. Are we going home? Sophie asked. Quietly. Soon, I said, and put my arm around her. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need another argument or another excuse. Had already set something in motion, and somewhere the countdown had begun. If you'd asked me a week ago, I would have told you my family was normal. Not perfect. No one's perfect, but normal. Enough. I grew up the younger of two sisters. Karen is 4 years older, and when you're a kid, that gap feels like a lifetime. My mom and dad never said they wanted just one child, but sometimes it felt like they had, and I was the add-on they hadn't budgeted for. I never said that out loud, even to myself. Back then, I convinced myself it was just my imagination. Because how do you tell yourself your own parents might not want you? You don't. You tell yourself they're busy or tired or it's just an age thing. You explain away the times they take your sister to the movies and leave you at home because it's 12 and up. You excuse the weekends she gets special trips, older kid stuff, while you spend yours with a babysitter. You learn to believe the official story. When you're older, you'll get to do those things, too. Except somehow when you're older never came. And I told myself that was fine. Because if I started thinking it wasn't fine, I might start thinking they didn't like me, and that was a door I didn't want to open. So I didn't open it. Kept showing up for family dinners, holidays, birthdays. I kept the machine running because they were my family, and if you only get one set of parents, you don't throw them away over a gut feeling you can't prove. Fast forward to adulthood. I became a mom myself, a single mom. Sophie's dad wasn't really in the picture from the start. In those first years, it felt like I was always one late bill away from disaster. Always trying to cover a shift and still make it to bedtime stories. I'm a nurse. Worked nights, weekends, whatever I could get. Eventually, things got easier. I got a promotion. I started making enough to not panic every time I opened my banking app. I live carefully. I save. I keep a cushion. But when it comes to Sophie, I don't mind spending. She's the one place I never feel like I have to measure the cost. My mom and dad know that. They've always known it. And sometimes I think they lean on it. Because even when they've offered to help with Sophie picking her up after school, taking her for a weekend, there's this undercurrent. If we go somewhere, you'll pay for her, right? If she needs tickets, meals, activities, you can cover it. You earn more than us. Always framed like it's just logical. But it's not lost on me that I've never heard them say the same thing to Karen. And speaking of Karen, if you want to know what the golden child looks like in adulthood, you could just watch her for 10 minutes. My parents adore her kids. Spoil them. Every visit turns into a parade of gifts and trips. With Sophie, it's different. Less attention, fewer invitations. And when I've noticed it, really noticed it, I've told myself it's just in my head. Told myself that right up until this trip. The vacation had been their idea. 2 hours away, beachside hotel. They knew I couldn't get time off work that week. My schedule is like clockwork, and they know the weeks I'm locked in, but they insisted Sophie should go anyway. It'll be good for her. She'll get quality time with her grandparents and cousins. And I believed them because even if I had questions about how they treated me, I Wanted to believe they'd treat Sophie differently, that she'd be safe with them. I paid for her share of the hotel, gave them my card so they wouldn't have to cover her food or activities. Thought I was doing the right thing, sitting there in that hotel lobby with Sophie next to me and the air conditioning blasting. I looked down at my phone and saw the charge for the boat trip. Expensive. More than expensive. And Sophie wasn't even on it. That was the moment it all lined up. Not just the boat, not just the locked room. All of the years of not enough space and you're too young and maybe next time. The weekends I was left behind as a kid. The way Sophie gets quietly sidelined. The excuses that always sounded just plausible enough. Except this time. It wasn't an excuse. It was a locked door, a hot room, no food, no water, and a bill with my name on it. Something in me went very still. Not rage. I'd had that already. This was colder, clearer. I looked at Sophie, swinging her legs on the lobby chair like it was any other day at a beach hotel. For everyone else here maybe it was, but for me it was the last day I was going to pretend this was normal. So, I made the call. The call I should have made years ago. The one I'd been too afraid to even imagine. I called the police. The dispatcher's voice was steady, practiced. Mine was too somehow. I told her my daughter had been left locked in a hotel room in summer heat with no food or water while the rest of the family went on an all-day outing. I gave the room number, the hotel name, and said we were in the lobby. She said officers were on the way. I sat with Sophie and waited. Every minute felt longer than the last. The kind of waiting where you hear the hum of the air conditioning and the tap of your own pulse at the same time. When the police finally walked in, the air changed. Not dramatic, no flashing lights, just two officers in uniform, calm and steady. But suddenly, everyone in the lobby found a reason to glance at their phones. I stood. I'm the one who called. They sat me down and asked what happened. I told them plainly, Sophie is 8 years old. She was locked in that room for hours in the heat with no food or water. The rest of the family had gone out for the day. The older officer turned to the receptionist. Housekeeping found her when they came by. She said she was alone and upset and asked to call her mom. We brought her down here. Hearing it spoken out loud by someone else made my chest tighten. It wasn't just my version of events anymore. It was fact. They wrote it down. Then I showed them my phone with the pending charge for the boat trip. They paid for this with my card. I said she wasn't even there. One officer raised an eyebrow. And the others? Where are they? Now on the boat? I said they should be back soon. They decided to wait. We sat there, me and Sophie on the lobby couch. Two officers posted near the entrance. Felt strangely calm. Not happy, not relieved, but calm in the way you get when there's nothing left to hide and no way for them to pretend it didn't happen. About 40 minutes later, they walked in. My mom first, then my dad, then Karen. With her kids in tow, sunburned. Sunglasses perched on their heads, still smelling like salt water and sunscreen. The laughter died instantly when they saw the uniforms. Can we help you? My mom asked the officers, her tone pure. I'm the one in charge here. Were you the guardians responsible for Sophie Mitchell today? Yes, she said, but we need to ask you some questions about why she was found unsupervised. Karen cut in before my mom could finish. She was fine. It was only a few hours. She was locked in a room without food or water. I said, my voice flat. It was hot. My dad shrugged. It wasn't that hot. The younger officer glanced at Sophie, then back to them. Would you leave your own children like that? Karen didn't even hesitate. Of course not. We'd never do that to our kids. The silence that followed was heavy enough to touch. I looked straight at her. So, you admit you treat my daughter differently? Karen rolled her eyes. She's spoiled. Our kids know how to behave. That was the... You could see the shift in the officer's posture. That small invisible line they'd been waiting to see crossed. One stepped away, radio in hand. Didn't hear every word, but I caught enough. CPS and protective custody. My mom's head snapped toward him. What is this about, ma'am? The older officer said, we'll need you to wait here while we coordinate with child protective services. Karen scoffed loud. Enough for the whole lobby. This is ridiculous. Overreact? The younger officer didn't even look at her. Please take a seat. Sophie pressed herself into my side. I kept my hand on her shoulder, my eyes on the sliding glass doors at the front of the lobby. Wasn't sure what exactly was coming next, but I knew it wasn't going to be the quiet, polite wrap-up they were expecting. The radio call ended. The officer came back, murmured something to his partner, and both of them moved to stand between my family and the exit. My mom opened her mouth to argue again, but the older officer's voice was calm. Still, you need to remain here until CPS arrives. This is non-negotiable. Karen folded her arms and leaned back in the chair like she was the one inconvenience. My dad kept muttering under his breath, but I didn't bother to catch the words. I glanced at the reception desk. The woman there was arranging a stack of brochures, pretending not to listen, but her eyes kept flicking toward Sophie. She had an opinion about what was happening, and I was sure she did. It was too professional to say it. Sophie whispered, are we going to leave soon? Yes, I said. We are. Karen started up again. She's fine. She wasn't in danger. We do this all the time. The younger officer cut her off. You leave your own children in locked rooms all the time. Karen froze. My mom jumped in, flustered. No, not ours. Just mine, I said. No one answered that. The lobby doors slid open and 3 CPS workers walked in with clipboards in hand. For a second, nobody moved. The officers straightened a little. My mom's mouth fell open mid-sentence, and Karen sat forward like she'd been hit with a bucket of cold water. The only sound was the whoosh of the air conditioning. Stayed where I was on the couch, Sophie pressed against my side, watching the workers introduce themselves, their voices calm, steady, professional, the kind of voices you want when everything else is falling apart. Then they split. One toward me, the other two straight to my family. I didn't hear every word, but Karen wasn't exactly whispering. Her voice carried across the lobby, sharp and desperate. She's fine. She wasn't in danger. We do this all the time. The younger officer I'd been watching earlier cut in. His tone clipped. You leave your own children in locked rooms all the time? Karen stammered. No, not them. Just mine, I said again, not loudly, but loud enough. No one answered. The CPS worker near me crouched down so she was eye level with Sophie. Hi, sweetheart. I'm Dana. You're safe now. You did the right thing by telling someone. Sophie looked up at me, waiting for my nod before she said anything. I nodded. Then Dana straightened and turned to me. Thank you for calling this in. We're going to make sure every child here is safe. It should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like my stomach dropped through the floor. Because as furious as I was, as betrayed as I felt, this was still my family. Watching strangers take over felt surreal, like I'd been living in a bad dream and had just now realized I wasn't going to wake up. Across the room, one of the other workers, a tall man with glasses, was speaking firmly to my mom. She was trying every line she'd used on me my entire life. She was fine. You're overreacting. This is ridiculous. Except this time, nobody was nodding along. Then came the words that silenced the room. We're placing these children in protective custody. Karen shot to her feet. You can't just take my kids. But they could, and they did. The workers gathered Karen's kids, speaking softly to them while Karen's voice broke into tears and shouts. My dad muttered something about family sticking together, but his voice sounded small. For the first time in my life, the kids were led toward the door, backpacks dangling from their shoulders, still sniffling. I didn't move. Sophie didn't move. We just watched them go. And as awful as it was to see, I also knew this was the first time anyone had ever told my family no. The hotel manager appeared not long after. He didn't look angry, just done. Your booking is terminated, he told my parents and Karen. We don't allow child endangerment on our property. Karen sputtered. You can't. It's already arranged. Staff will help. You collect your belongings. Minutes later, I watched as bellmen carried their suitcases down one by one. Under police supervision, the bags landed on the floor with dull thuds, the sound of endings. Guests whispered behind their hands, staring. My mom's cheeks burned red, and for once she had no words. One of the officers came over to me quietly. We'll need to keep those receipts and charges you showed us. They'll be entered into the report. Handed them over. He lowered his voice even more. There may be fraud charges. We'll see what the DA wants to do. Nodded. Understood. And then I did the one thing I hadn't been able to do all day. I walked out of there with my daughter. The next morning, my phone rang. Karen. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. You evil, you got my kids taken away. She screamed before I could say hello. No, Karen, I said evenly. You got your kids taken away when you left mine. Locked in a hotel room with no food or water. You don't understand. Understand perfectly, I said and hung up. The calls didn't stop. First my mom, then my aunt, then cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Some were furious, some just fishing for gossip. But I gave the same answer every time. They left Sophie locked in a room. CPS got involved. That's it. And most of them after a beat said, oh, because there's not much you can argue with. After that, by evening, I saw the Facebook post. Karen had dug up a picture of her and the kids on some picnic and wrote about being betrayed by family and losing everything because of lies. The comments started off sympathetic, but it didn't take long. Someone, I still don't know who, wrote, didn't you leave your niece alone in a hotel room? After that, the tide turned fast. People she thought would defend her didn't. The time I clicked away, it was a pylon. I should have felt satisfied. Instead, I felt tired. About a week later, the call came again. This time, Karen's voice was different. Frantic. Mark has the kids. CPS released them to him, and now he's filing for full custody. Do you understand? I'm going to lose them. I closed my eyes. He's there. Father. Where else did you think they'd go? They were supposed to come back to me, she cried. Now they're saying I might only get visitation. You need to talk to your lawyer, I said quietly. Kept ranting, blaming me, blaming CPS, blaming everyone but herself. I let her talk until I couldn't anymore. Karen, you treated my daughter like she didn't matter. This is what happens when you do that. She sobbed something I couldn't make out and hung up. It's been 6 months. The custody case isn't fully finalized, but Karen's kids are living with their dad. What used to be a neat 50-50 split after the divorce is now him as the primary parent and her seeing them when the court allows it. First, I thought maybe it was just CPS's recommendation carrying weight in court. Then came the part one didn't see coming. Sophie came home from school one afternoon and said almost casually, "I saw Anna and Luke today. They said they live with their dad now. They told me they wanted to." That stopped me cold. It wasn't just the system or their dad pushing for custody. The kids themselves had said it. They told Sophie straight out that what happened at the hotel was messed up, their exact words, and that after it they didn't want to live with their mom and grandparents anymore. Hearing it from them through Sophie at school of all places felt like the ground shifting under me. For years I thought I was the only one who saw the cracks, the only one who felt left out and less than. Turns out even the golden children saw it once the mask slipped. The money part ended up settling itself. 2. I filed a dispute with my bank and the charges were reversed. From what I heard later, the hotel turned around and billed my parents and Karen directly. For once, they had to pay for their own luxury. Not me. I've gone completely no contact with them. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I can't let Sophie grow up thinking neglect and favoritism are just part of family life. I excused it for too long. I won't let her do the same. And here's the strange part. Feel lighter, happier, like I finally put down something I didn't realize I'd been dragging around since childhood. The wider family mostly sided with me. Aunts, cousins, even the older generation. Once the story came out, people admitted they'd noticed it, too. The favoritism, the little digs, the way Karen and her kids were always held above everyone else. Suddenly, I wasn't the sensitive one anymore. My parents and Karen are the outsiders now. Do I feel sad? Sometimes. It's hard to admit your own parents can't be trusted with your child. But then I look at Sophie. She's thriving. She laughs more. She's free of that constant comparison I grew up under. But what do you think? Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments.